their nails done now. Girls with their nails done. I like the girls with their nails done. Girls with their nails done now. Girls with their nails done. I like the girls with their nails done.
Ladies and gentlemen, the final round is upon us here in the Simrigs Sprint Series European Split. This week, it's a track that we're all extremely familiar with in all aspects of motorsport. Barcelona. It's going to be 80 minutes here, and a two-stopper should shake things up quite a bit. Hello, everybody. My name is Nick Amon, and I want to welcome you to tonight's broadcast. And joining me in the booth, as always, Mr. Charles Phillips. Sir, how are we doing here this evening?
Doing very lovely. Thank you for asking, Nick. How about you today?
Well, I'm doing pretty well myself. I tried to fit 2 cans of Guinness into one mug. I got about 1 2/3, so there's
That's
that.
good enough for me.
But yeah, no, it's been pretty good today. Honestly, today and yesterday has been pretty solid. So banking on Friday, following that trend. But for right now, worry about Thursday, which is today, and what it is going to be is the final race of Season 12 of the Simrigs Sprint Series.
Yes, the final season of the EU split, and of course all of the splits. Today we have 14 drivers so far joining us for the race. Gonna be an exciting race, two-stopper, an hour long, if I'm not mistaken. So that's gonna be quite much variety, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we had that race, I believe, in Hungaroring. That was quite thrilling, despite the smaller grid size.
Yes, it was an amazing race. Also, an amazing race that we had was, of course, Suzuka, and yeah, anything can happen, and I look forward to the race.
I do too. Welcoming, of course, Ryan Custard. We've got Tully in here. We've got Parody, myself, Charles in the chat, everyone else watching, either live or later on. Thank you so much for joining us here in the broadcast. How you doing? How's your day been? Hopefully it's been going well. But real quick, let's take a look at the results from last week's race at the Hungaroring. The top dog, Marius Fredriksson, who did confirm that the other Fredriksson is not his brother, but he is. We're just going to say that for now. No, he managed to walk away with a very surprising win. Not really one that we expected. Bauer took second, Rumbouts took third. Those two guys having some very interesting turn of events at the end of the race. Of course, Rumbouts underfielded his car, and I believe Bauer got a drive-through penalty as well, so he had to deal with that. For the Pro-Ams category, Huziak, Cairns, and Nemeth had a very solid outing for their rides. And then in amateur class, Abelstead continuing his domination of the red-colored class. And then it was Huneveld and Brioso. A few of those guys missing here this evening, but that's okay. The show carries on. We got to look at the standings, however. So, for overall and also for the pro category, it is Bauer on top with 896 points. That is 141 points clear of Rumbouts. Now, that sets up a pretty tough goal for Rumbouts. For Simon Bauer, he just has to finish the race. That's it. That's all he has to do is cross the line, and you've secure the championship. However, if he has a repeat of what happened last season, Rumbouts will have to win if he wants to overtake. For the Pro-Am category, Cairns hasn't fully clinched it, although with the point differential of 76 points down to Bouchard, it's looking quite likely. But, stranger things have happened. It's going to be a very good finishing for Bouchard if he wants to win. And then also for the overall category in Pro, I forgot to mention, Vinogradov is in third right now, 701 points. It's 54 back from Rumbouts. And then Huziak is 29 off of Bouchard, so he could upset him. Could take away the Belgian's second place. And then down in amateur class, Abelstead, I mean, let's be real, Charles. He's been driving like a Pro-Am this entire series, and he is picking up an 81-point advantage over Brioso. 415 is the points he has, which gives Brioso 334. And then to Oberg, who is not present, unfortunately, it is 225 with 59. And by those numbers, Abelstead has clinched the amateur class category. So while one class is done, you could technically say 2 are still up and running.
Yes, and well, it's going to be exciting today, and just as I say that, we are just about finishing free practice here, going on to a 15-minute qualifying session.
Yep, and then that'll lead us into that 80-minute two-stop race to round things out for the season. These drivers have done 60 minutes, they've done 70 minutes, they're going to do 80, and they've done 90 as well. So we're kind of covering that nice little bit of racing spectrum. But here in free practice, it's Simon Bauer, unsurprisingly, at the top of the timing sheets. 42.73, almost a full second clear of her, and Rumbouts in the fellow Honda is quite a ways back, over a full second, and not improving at the moment. But of course, qualifying will be a bit different.
Yes, you have 15 minutes, not 30, unlike in free practice. So uh, it's going to be interesting to see who will get the lap in.
Well, it won't matter because everybody has been pushed forward into the qualifying session. And as the drivers head out on track, we're going to give a quick shout out to this season's sponsor, Simrigs. We've talked about them quite a lot here in the broadcast. I think more than realistically has been done. But again, this Melbourne-based team of sim racing enthusiasts, they've got everything you need to upgrade your gear, whether it's wheels, pedals, bases, shifters, pretty much anything you can think of, they've got you covered. And of course, servicing New Zealand as well. And if you're like me and Charles and you happen to live somewhere else in the world, well, if you send them an email, they'll be more than happy to do some business with you. And of course, those beautiful OR Patreon members do get 5% off their in-store purchases, so take advantage of that if you haven't already. But again, thank you to Simrigs for sponsoring the season of the Sprint Series. We hope to see them back again next season in about a month's time. But it is Marius Fredriksson that was first out on track, so we'll be following him for a good chunk of this qualifying, at least for this first part.
Yes, Marius Fredriksson, our last race winner, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, pulled out a surprising win last week.
No, I am wrong. That was Terje Fredriksson that won.
Was it Marius Fredriksson? Am I mixing them up already? Oh, that was fast.
Yes, I think.
Oh, you're
Terje
right. Yes, you're right. Yeah, Terry Fredriksson. I'm sure Marius is more than happy with me giving him some credit. I was confused because I saw the Pro-Am and I looked at my notes and he wasn't, top of the Pro-Am category. So yeah, my apologies. It is Terje Fredriksson.
Oh, good. But let's go back to Marius as he is on the start-finish straight right now as we are talking. Well, over the finish line over the start line to start his lap now. It is a long straight here. Gets all the way up to 6th gear and brake around the 100-meter board. For turn 1, right-hander just throws it over the curb into the left-hander. For turn 3, a very long right-hander that is very tricky to get right, actually. It depends on the car, if it's a 3rd or a 4th gear corner, which is very interesting. Potential overtaking spot, of course. Turn 3 and turn 4, going down to turn 5, which is a downhill left-hander, makes it very tricky to get right, and you take us through the rest, Nick.
Well, yeah, this is a circuit that I myself had a lot of problems with, especially here up to turn 6. It feels sort of weird coming up through here, but when you get on the exit of this corner, it actually hooks up quite nicely, and then you head down to the back straight of this circuit. A nice long straight to work with. You can really get climbing up in those gears, and also a very good overtaking opportunity down here into the hairpin. About the 100 board is where you're going to be playing with. You want to hook it up nice and neat on the inside. It looks like Fredriksson might have missed a little bit, but manages to gather it up, and then this very quick left-right sort of pseudo-chicane into that long sweeping right seems to go on forever. And then the final chicane that has many, many opinions about it. Mine personally are not too great, and Fredriksson may be feeling that as well, but manages to clip the apex on the exit and then down to the final corner. Pretty easy run to the line, so we'll see where the Norwegian comes out in all of this. A 45.07 is immediately beaten by Bauer's 42.805 and Partez 44.16, but that's a lap of Barcelona, excuse me. I want to make sure I get everything right because I feel like if I get it wrong, someone's going to yell at me. But this is a track that we've seen in all facets of motorsport, especially in testing for F1. And I wanted to mention it earlier with Fredriksson coming up to turn 4 here. I'm surprised there's no Mercedes on the grid, but then again, I feel like it's probably for the better.
I will not comment on what Mercedes has to do with turn 4, but of course, it is a very nice corner, I'd say. Lewis Hamilton not particularly liking that one, but that is another story.
No, it's definitely not, of course, a spot that Nico Rosberg was taken out in with equal machinery. I'm sure I'm probably stoking some flames somewhere. I don't really care. It's all good and fun, but these first laps are coming in. Fredriksson from provisional to 8th. Obviously, immediately with Bauer, we do see Rumbout 2nd. Fredriksson is 3rd. Partez Ippolito, your top 5. So Partez sneaking that Pro-Am Porsche quite a ways up. We're still waiting on laps from Huziak, Abelstead, Hearn, Bochart, Vinogradov, and Brioso. I know I said it earlier that there wasn't really a fight in the Pro category, but looking at the numbers and looking at the point distributions, or looking at the point rewards for finishing positions, Vinogradov could possibly overtake Rumbout's 54 points back. And if we look at the Russians' sort of statistics this season, it's been pretty good. He's had some very high-rated finishes. So I don't think it's too out of the question to consider the possibility that he does overtake the Dutchman for P2, but he's going to have to bank on, well, ideally Rumbout's going to the back of the grid.
Well, yes, but so far in qualifying, Vinogradov has not went out of the pit lane.
No, he's he might be doing some worse to first, or maybe some setup changes. I'm not too certain. I'm not gonna take a stab at it, but who knows?
He did yesterday mention that it would be nice that the top 3 in Pro class start last, but obviously Bauer and the Rumbout do not agree with that, so he will be alone there.
Bauer is not taking any chances. He knows. If we recall the last season, he had an unfortunate turn of events, so he'll be looking to not do that this season. If we look at the point distribution, though, for finishing positions, first place gets 150. That's why I mentioned that with Rumbouts, he effectively has to have Bauer leave and then win the race. Half a second ahead of Fredriksson, so Bauer's going to probably be double-checking with his internet service provider to make sure something similar doesn't happen. Second place is 130, so it's already a 20-point gap, and then it's 15 down to 3rd, and then another 15 to 100, and then you start ticking off 5 points from 100 until you get to 45, and then it becomes 42, 38. So, yeah, I think if we see Vinogradov out on track, we could see him overtaking Rumbouts because he is an absolute missile with his Porsche.
Yes, and of course, if we talk about the unfortunate possibility of Bauer disconnecting, if he gets pole in this race and gets the fastest lap, Rumbouts has to win the championship by a single point.
That's true. Yep, you do get 3 points for fastest lap, and you get 5 points if you finish on pole position. 4 extra points for second, 3 for third, 2 for fourth, and 1 for fifth. So yeah, right now it looks like Bauer is going to be picking up an extra 5. That'll put him 146 points. But with Rumbouts being second, it actually becomes 142 points. Now, if Bauer picks up fastest lap, that'll be 145, which will put Rumbouts in one of the most, I would say, precarious situations. If he wants to win, of course, last season's defending champion, he'll want to repeat that success, but Bauer's been putting up one hell of a fight this season, has not given him an inch.
Yes, that is true, and we hope for the best for Simon Bauer, and of course we are the Rumbouts, as we are riding with Ryan Cuthbert here down the back straight into the hairpin, left-hander, of course, brake at 100, get the apex, and straight out to the kind of chicane here before the actual chicane, which, as you said, has quite many opinions that we will not talk about right now, but Yeah, you just have to hit the apexes and drive out of the corner to get a good time there. Oh, yeah. Uh, I'm just
I
going
just
to
realized my mic was muted. My mic was muted. Oh no, I made the best play on words and it didn't go through. I am so
Oh,
upset.
I was about to comment that I was having regrets about commentating when you said that, so it is quite lovely that that did not go through. But yes, the
Anywho.
Paul is very happy with his position right now.
Yep, so it's Bauer on pole, Rumbout second, Partes finding a way into that top three in the Pro-Am category, Fredrickson's fourth, and Ippolito did manage to push his way into the top five. Still got about 4.5 minutes to go here in qualifying. Simone Ippolito, another flying lap for him, has turned out pretty well. Bart Bouchard, we haven't talked about him all too much. Currently second place in that Pro-Am category, and with Cairns being up in 8th, he's going to have to overcome quite insurmountable odds to take home the Pro-Am Championship. We have faith, of course, in all these drivers, but only time's going to tell where things play out. So as he crosses the line, he could possibly push his Lambo into the top 10. He doesn't. Misses out on the top 10 by 0.003 of a second. It's Huziak holding the line there in the Pro category, looking to not lose any more time. Hearn out on track, trying to set a lap, has yet to do so. And Vinogradov is finally out on track. He just finished an out lap, so starting to get these flying laps going. He's only going to have a little bit of time, though. I wonder if that might have been the wrong call. I mean, there is a bit more rubber on track now, and temperatures have stayed the same, 29 track, 22 ambient. But yeah, we'll see where he can put that Porsche towards the end of qualifying here.
Yes, and I think he had faith that Bauer and Rimwout will stay in the garage with him, but he probably came back to his PC and saw that they did not want to do that stuff, so he now has to set a qualifying lap with 2 minutes to go. Going to be quite interesting to see that. Of course, he's driving the Porsche, one of the best cars, if not the best car in the game, but also the hardest car to drive in the game.
And only enough for P12. So he's got a couple laps to make this stick. Not going to be easy by any means. Partes in the pit lane. I believe his qualifying session is going to be done and dusted from that. We've got Rasmus Abelstein leading the amateur class, and seeing as he's the only amateur class here. Oh, a little big bit of lockup there. Looks like he caught it beautifully and kept the BMW from spearing off. It looked like it wanted to go into the wall, but well, Abelsted's got the reins on that one nice and tight. He's just here. He knows he's already won, but I think he's just doing some victory laps right now.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to do a little bit extra, of course. And here is Daniel Hearn, who also has not set a quality time so far.
No, but this is a flying lap, so we should be seeing... Oh, slows down. Perhaps, maybe looking for that final last second qualifying lap. He was pretty close to the car ahead. I didn't quite see who that was, so maybe building up some distance. But we'll see what the Briton can do. Currently starting last on the grid, but he will have time for one more lap. Unfortunately, this will be the final lap he gets. He was looking pretty good on the timing sheets, although the 46.9 will be counted. He didn't go outside of track limits, so we'll leave him to his devices. See what he can do. Vinogradov runs it extremely wide on exit. He was, I think for a second it said 2, plus 2 seconds. So he was doing very, very well. Yeah, 44.40 would have put him not quite on pole position, but it would have been within the top 6. Maybe even top 5 if he pushed a little bit. So he'll be another driver that we leave alone to do his own thing. Brioso as well, still out there. We've got Ippolito, Partes, Fredrickson in the pit lane. Simon Bauer, I think just getting another warm-up lap in.
Might be, I'm unsure, but yeah, 20 seconds left in qualifying, and we have still Daniel Hearn, Vinogradov, of the pro drivers who have not set at the best time so far, so they have until the end of this lap to do that.
Yep, Abelstead is improving for 10th. Could overtake Huziak in the top 10, of course. Things have shuffled around a little bit, so we could see some couple position shuffles right at the end here. Out of the final corner, the Swede goes, crosses the line. It's 7th position. What is that? I did not expect that in the slightest. Where did all the time come from?
Out of thin air, I'm guessing, but Brioso out of the final corner and over the line. He improves on his time, P12 so far. Never mind, immediately denied by Daniel Hearn. And now we have Vinogradov into the slow chicane in the final corner. We will see what his time will be over the line.
Well, he's just about 2 seconds. Oh, he pulls out. He had the speed. I think he's going to try a little bit of worst to first. I didn't know that we were still running those challenges. There's Huziak in P10. Hearn up into the top 5, though. Incredible stuff. So Partes and Fredrickson pushed down a spot. The Aston Martin pushed out of the top 10 in the final race. It's going to sting a little bit. Marius Fredrickson, P7 at the moment, even with himself, and now losing a couple of tenths. So if he can improve, he's going to be finishing up here in P7. And then we've got Bart Bouchard as well on a fairly even lap. And he'll cross the line, stays P12, but that's going to do it.
Yes, that is the end of the 15-minute qualifying session here at Barcelona, and now we have an hour and a 20-minute race here.
No, an hour 20. You're close though. A 20-minute race would be a little too quick, if you will. But
yes, but now we have, of course, our favorite part of the broadcast.
Yep, the final grid walk of the season. Ladies and gentlemen, it's about to go down. 14 cars, but if we can get a continuation of Hungaroring, I think we'll have a very exciting race here in Barcelona. 80 minutes, 2 pit stops. So things are going to get shaken up a little bit, especially towards the middle and end. Of course, there is no pit window, so drivers are free to pit whenever they like. Unless they don't, then they'll pick up 2 minutes of penalty points, and that's going to push them quite a ways down. But let's look through your starting grid. It's Simon Bauer, another pole for him. How many times has that happened? Rumbouts joins him on that first row. A Honda 1-2, very not too surprising, but obviously welcome to see. Ippolito, Hearn, Partes into the top 5. Double Porsche and a single Aston Martin there. Fredrickson joins his countryman Marius Fredrickson, 6 and 7 for them. It's Rasmussen lining up, or sorry, not Rasmussen, Abelstead lining up 8th on the grid for the amateur class. He's just going to get to the end. He's already clinched the amateur championship. Congrats to him. Ryan Cuthbert, Uros Huziak, Iwan Cairns, 3 McLarens there, 9, 10, and 11. Bart Bouchard makes it just outside of that in 12th. And then it's Brioso 13th, and Eugene Vinogradov starting lowly 14th, but maybe looking for a little bit of a highlight reel. We'll see where he can end up by the finish of the evening's festivities. Predictions right now. I know we're probably counting on Simon Bauer doing some damage here as he normally does, but outside of that, if we're looking at every other driver on the grid, Charles, who do you think could possibly surprise us?
I am unsure, but I think I have to say Simone Ippolito again. Starting P3, better chances this time than at Hungaroring, so hopefully he gets a good race there.
Yep, I think it'll be interesting to watch. I want to say, I wouldn't be surprised if Terje Fredriksson does something quite shocking in the 29 Aston. I don't think it's going to be a win, but I wouldn't be too surprised if he pulled off a podium right here at the end.
Wouldn't be surprising, but yeah, no real comments on that, and we go for the formation lap as Simon Bauer leads the way.
How many times has Simon Bauer been right at the front of this grid? So he's already picked up 5 bonus points there for his pole position. Roombout's with 4. So that will... Actually, if my math is right, which it usually isn't, Bauer is at 901 points, so just a smidge over the 900 line. Very dominating performance from him. Roombout's will be 759, and if I bring out my assistant, aka the calculator, and I do a little bit of mathemagicianry, it's 142 points. Again, Roombout's in a very desperate situation if he wants to win the championship, but with the 100 Honda ahead of him, I don't know. It's gonna be, I don't want to say impossible, but I'm not expecting him to pull off the upset.
Yes, and I think Roombout will be sending some messages to the German ISP, so that's gonna be interesting to see during the race, of course. Simon Bauer with the hazard lights on, just showing who's the boss here, and behind him we have Roombout's Ippolito, Hearn, Barthez for the top 5, Fredriksson, Abelstead, Cuthbert, Huziak, Cairns for the top 10, and the last 4 are Bouchard, Brioso, Vinogradov, and Fredriksson, who seems to have had a disconnect somewhere or something.
Possibly, yeah, it looks like it, but I don't think it's anything that he should be all too worried about. Pretty stiff competition ahead of him, but then again, we've seen some crazy shenanigans happen here in EU. But we're lined up 2x2 here as we head into the final sector. A little bit of a light flash there from Roombouts and from Daniel Hearn. Maybe a bit of a hello to the broadcasting team. There's Terje Fredriksson in the yellow Aston Martin sort of racing back to position. That disconnect might have been the call. But ladies and gentlemen, around the final corner here for the last formation lap of the Simrigs EU Sprint Series. Simon Bauer on pole ahead of Roombouts. For Bauer, just got to finish the race. He'll clinch the championship. Cairns has to hold off Bouchard for 80 minutes to clinch Pro-Am, and for the amateur class, well, it's already done and dusted. It's green, green, green here for the last time at Catalunya. And look at the launch there that I believe Barthez gets around the Aston Martin of Ippolito, who gets swallowed up by the pack. The 2 Hondas dead heat. Down to turn number 1 they go. On the inside is Bauer, and there's a touch there. Roombounce is spinning out and spins to the back of the grid. That's going to be an absolute heartbreak there for the Dutchman as we head up to turn 3 and into turn 4. It's gonna be Bauer, Hearn, Barthez, Fredriksson. There's Abelstead in the top 5. Incredible stuff from him. Fredriksson, Terje in the Aston Martin, trying to get a piece of the pie there, but has to settle behind. There's Cuthbert in the McLaren just beyond. Fredriksson misses braking point, has to dodge to the side. That's going to give the Scot a chance to pull in and pull on through. This start already kicking off here at Catalunya. There's Ippolito in the background after a disastrous start is already beginning to charge back up the grid. And then behind that, Huziak, Vinogradov, Bouchard, Brioso, Cairns, and Roombouts as well at the bottom of the grid. But man, Charles, it's going off already. You can see the gap that Bauer and Hearn have, but the mid-pack here, they're jockeying for position.
Yes, it is an unfortunate start from Roombouts there, as he got, I'm guessing, tapped from Bauer. Something happened there into turn 2, but very unfortunate, and a lot of action so far.
Yep, it's been a dream getaway, of course, for the German. All he has to do at this point is make it to the end. There's Terje Fredriksson in the background, missing the chicane, has to take to the escape road. Of course, we don't have the luxury of not using the chicane. We've got to use the whole chicane. Of course, other motorsports series have no problem using that long right-hander, so I know what Formula 1 has, but here in this game, we are not as fortunate. Maybe in Assetto Corsa 2, we'll be seeing that. Of course, we do have the 1.9 update coming out very soon. That'll add a couple of extra little goodies, and I believe that'll be the final update before the Kuno squad works fully on Assetto Corsa 2. You're going to ride on board here. Rasmus Abelstead trying to shove the BMW down the inside there on Fredriksson here into turn 4. Does get it, and they could be side by side out of the corner. No, it's the Swede punching well above his weight. Gets the move done up into P4. This man is an absolute weapon.
That is an amazing move we have seen from the BMW of Abelstead. And speaking of amazing moves, look at Fredriksson, Vinogradov, and Cuthbert here fighting for P6.
P7, it looks like Cuthbert misses the apex. There's a touch there, and the McLaren's off. I think the stewards will be looking at that. I don't know if it was contact. It might have looked like a bit of a racing incident, but that's not for us to decide. Vinogradov from the back of the grid up into P7 right now, running behind Fredriksson. Terje Fredriksson, who chases down Marius Fredriksson, who chases down Rasmus Abelstead. This could be a battle pack forming for the 4th position. Of course, too early to call. Bart Beauchart in the background having to deal with Simone Ippolito trying to throw it around the outside. Then the inside there at the chicane does get it done. That is going to invite Roombout's into the picture, takes full advantage of that, and with the slipstream down the front straight, it is going to be the Dutchman picking up some extra positions here. P9 for him, and the slipstream pulls out to the side. That Honda does have superior top end compared to the Aston Martin into turn number 1, and if I had to bet on it, I don't think Ippolito is going to fight all too much, although an early break point keeps the Italian ahead, but that is going to invite the drivers behind for a chance at this battle. Brioso just slips it on the inside there, the Lamborghini, and another spot lost for the Belgian.
Yes, I'm sorry, I was just away for a little bit, and well, we already had some action still going on between Ippolito and Roombouts here at Barcelona. Roombouts makes the move happen as Simon Bauer just pulls away from Daniel Hearn.
I mean, can we really be surprised that Simon Bauer is doing what he normally does, which is just coming into a race and completely wrecking face? And there's a dive down the inside from Vinogradov. That's 6th position for the Russian back of the grid, and he is definitely seeing how far he can go. But back to the point about Simon Bauer. I mean, when you look at the season, so first off, 901 points because of the pole position. I mean, when your competitor is over 100 points off of you overall, you can't be too surprised that he's pulling away already. He's got a couple of seconds down to position number 2, but Honda versus Porsche, it's not going to work out too well, but Bauer's had one hell of a season. Beauchart into the pit lane, it looks like. Very early stop from him.
Yes, it might be for damage or perhaps an interesting strategy from the Lamborghini driver, but Simon Bauer gets the fastest lap. I just noticed that. I'm not sure if that's recent or just happened, but Fredriksson and Vinogradov fighting for position for, looks like, P5, and ahead of them is Abelstead, and Vinogradov just gets on the inside there.
Yeah, just incredible respect from these guys. Side by side, continuing the fight. Vinogradov, a little bit of a flinch there. Avoid contact, but actually uses that to his advantage and just sort of tiptoes around the outside. That's position number 4 there. Position 5 for him, so he'll be more than happy to take that. Looks like things haven't updated just yet. Things are a little broken here in ACC. Can't say I'm too surprised. But yeah, very good move. Simon Bauer, his fastest lap is very recent. His last lap was a 43.14, and that was also his best. So for Bauer. Just another day in the office, it looks like.
Yes, it does look like that, and well, I can't say I'm very surprised about that, but here we are, Fredriksson and Fredriksson, one behind another.
And definitely not brothers, as I have been informed by, I believe, one of them. There's Abel set up ahead, having some problems. Comes out right in front of Marius Fredriksson. Looks like he missed his break point a little bit, but of course the Porsche driver, no sympathy at all. Pulls out ahead. The two German manufacturers starting a little bit of a drag race here down the front straight into turn number 1. And look at this. It's going to be 3 wide. There is... not Partes, excuse me, on the outside. That's Fredriksson, who is just going to lose out to both of those drivers. Roombouts as well, gaining some ground here on the 267. So for the BMW Aston Martin pairing of Abelstead and Fredriksson, Terje Fredriksson, that is going to be very good news for them. Roombouts on the inside into the infamy corner. Could have the drive on the exit. And it looks like he does. Manages that Honda well. Cuts across. Not in quite a blocking fashion, but more to just get back on the racing line. Ippolito as well, inviting himself to the party. I think this is where we're going to be sitting for a good fair bit, it looks like.
Yes, and I just want to point out into turn 1, how amazing was that? I am impressed that no contact was made between their drivers right there and then, and this shows how skilled and how sportsmanlike these drivers are here.
Yeah, 3 wide down to turn number 1. It's a wide turn, but it's very easy to get it wrong. But yeah, shoutouts to those guys. There's Roombouts pulling ahead, possibly, of Terje Fredriksson side by side. It's going to be an inside line for the Aston Martin into the chicane for Abelstead. This is going to be good for him. That'll give him a chance to pull away. Roombouts now on the inside, and then the outside. These two make contact, and it's going to be Fredriksson onto Ippolito.
That is very unfortunate, just as I said. No contact was made between their drivers. Very unfortunate, but it's racing and incidents happen. I think stewards will be definitely having a look into that.
Yeah, the touch from Terje onto Roombouts, I think, sort of caught those two drivers off guard, and they kind of went for the same bit of land. But if physics have taught us anything, is that two instances of matter cannot exist at the same space at the same time. And well, you saw the contact. They both spun into pit lane. Thankfully, they didn't go into pit lane. So for them, things will carry on. Ippolito and Brioso in the top 10. There's Huziak. That's what I was looking for. And Cuthbert's a good lead behind. Ippolito 15 seconds though.
Yes, I was just about to say that. And what is that for? But well, that is happening. Fredriksson goes off the track in the background.
Yeah, everyone's having some issues, it looks like. So we'll see what the penalty bot considers. So Bauer had a warning for the collision on lap 1. We saw it with Roombouts down to turn number 1. So he's been put on probation, a yellow card, if you will, for the number 100. Ippolito causing a collision on lap 1 has given him that 15 seconds. So that will get served at the next pit stop. And hopefully he doesn't pick up another one. Currently running P8 at the moment. Cuthbert's in the pit lane, getting some servicing done to that car. Of course, looks like Beauchard and Cuthbert have swapped tires, so that'll clear one of the mandatory stops, and they'll have to do it again before the end of the race. 70 minutes on the clock. Despite all the action, this first 10 minutes have gone by relatively slow. Normally when we see a lot of action at the start, it feels like 10 minutes, but it's been more like 40.
Yes, and well, as you said, a lot of action and a lot of action to go, as we have an hour and 10 minutes more to go here in the race. Brioso in P9 somehow got ahead of Fredriksson, and very impressive.
Yeah, well, again, that was the contact we saw at the pit entry between Ippolito and Marius Fredriksson. So for the Portuguese driver, that's going to be very good for him. Of course, you could say this is a pseudo-home race, but not really. I don't know how close Barcelona is to where Brioso lives. Portugal right next to Spain there, as Fredriksson makes a move down the inside, a common overtaking spot, it looks like. And Huziak picks up 15 seconds. What is this all about? Hold on just a second, ladies and gentlemen. A collision on
Speaking
lap
of
1.
Kvyat, here he's making a move around the outside and then the inside of turn 10, I believe that is, makes it past Brioso.
Yep, Brioso just relegated to P3. The three McLarens starting to come to blows here as there's a bit of contact there from the Portuguese driver on Huziak. Cairns just up ahead. 4 McLarens on the grid here tonight. Cuthbert, of course, sitting in 14th and dead last, but again, that was because of an earlier pit stop. So how things get shuffled once drivers come in will be interesting to see. Of course, no mandatory stops at all. We've told the drivers that they got to pit twice, but there is no need for them to do it within a certain time frame besides the checkered flag. So normally, as we say with these mandatory stops, there is a certain amount of time, there is a certain sort of point in the race where we see drivers going into the pits, but when you give them free reign like this and say do whatever you want, well, you get things like Bouchard and Cuthbert, early pit stops. We're going to see some later ones. Charles, if you had to really take a stab at it, do you think that we would see a bit of extremely late pit stop, maybe 15 minutes to go?
Everything is possible, I think, and as a driver, I would personally not like that, as tires aren't very optimal when you pit late. You don't have much time to heat them up, and you're just slow. So I wouldn't do that personally, but if somebody here thinks that is the best strategy, then I cannot really say to not do it.
All right. Well, while we were talking about that, we had Rumbouts just slither down the inside there on Abelstead. Looks like Fredriksson also trying for a nip at the BMW driver as we head down that back straight there. Thankfully, 34 is able to stay ahead, but look at Rumbouts already pulling away by quite a significant margin. That's going to push these two back into battle. Ippolito as well there in just waiting quite a ways back, of course, but the more battling these two guys do, the more likely it is that he gets into frame as we head onto the front straight once again, starting lap number 8 here at Catalunya. It's Bauer, who started on pole, has been sitting there in that top spot. Fastest lap of 43.14 is the time to beat. So he's already, at this point, gained 8 bonus points on top of what he's already gotten in his campaign this season. But of course, someone could come in and take that away from him. And then it's Hearn, Partes, Vinogradov, Rumbouts just recently pushing into that top 5. Abelstead, Fredriksson, Ippolito, Fredriksson again, but a different Fredriksson. Cairns, your top 10, Huziak, Brioso, Bouchard, Cuthbert, everyone 11 to 14th. And Terrier Fredriksson, last week's race winner, given Abelstead absolutely no chance to really relax right now as he is all over the rear wing of the BMW.
Yes, and he seems to not be able to get past the BMW thus far, but he is trying, and yeah, I think he's just a little bit stuck there behind the BMW, as Abelstead is defending very well from the Aston Martin of Fredriksson, and he's making it a real challenge.
Yeah, we saw the very defensive line there, which led into a bit of a switchback. I thought there might have been a drive there from Terrier on exit, but it looks like the BMW not letting that happen. So for the time being, Terrier stays behind, slightly later or slightly earlier braking, tries to catch the BMW off guard. Vinogradov picks up 15 seconds for his shenanigans. That's going to be, if I can find the channel, there it is. Oh, it's very close to the channel I'm already sitting in. A collision on lap 2, so that'll get served, of course, during the first pit stop. But out of the final corner, Fredriksson loses a fair bit of ground.
Yes, I think it just proves that the Aston Martin is a quick car on the exits, but it does not have the top speed that some of these cars have, and it really just showed there on the main straight of Barcelona. As we are joined by Cairns and Huziak here, fighting for the top 10.
Yeah, the final position in that top 10. Huziak with 15 seconds will have to serve that. So even if he gets around, he's going to have to find quite a bit of time and then bank on Cairns having some rather abysmal laps to maybe come out ahead through pit stops or whatever the case may be, of course. Two drivers already getting those one of those two mandatory stops out of the way. Beauchart and Cuthbert are those two drivers. They'll have one more stop in the pit lane before they are all set to take the checkered flag with no issues. Everybody else, though, has 2 stops to do as we get closer and closer to that 60-minute mark. 20 minutes already being taken off. We rejoin Fredrickson and Abelstead here. And even Ippolito, the battle for position number 6, continues to carry on. I saw the Delta just before cameras switched, and Fredrickson was alongside there of Abelstead as we got into Sector 3. And there's Ippolito lurking behind, sulking in the shadows, looking for some free positions onto the front straight. Fredrickson's going to have to stay in the slipstream if he wants to make this move work, but slightly less top end for the Aston Martin. You can see Ippolito getting sort of a double slipstream as we head down the front straight into turn number 1. It's almost 3 wide for a second as Abelstead pulls over to the side.
It was 3 wide for a second there, and Ippolito around the outside of turn 1 makes the move stick. Very impressive stuff there from Ippolito, but he has now Abelstead ahead of him and Fredrickson behind him, so he has to attack and defend at the same time, but he does not care as he goes on the outside on turn 4 on Abelstead. Amazing racing we are seeing here.
Yep, this is exactly what we came here to see this evening. As Abelstead misses breakpoint, scared by Ippolito. That's going to give Terrier Fredrickson a run, but it's not meant to be. Abelstead, the inside, he was here the same spot last time around, and it was a bit of a switchback. There's some contact there between the Aston Martin and the BMW. Fredrickson going to be taking full advantage of this, tries to throw it around the outside onto the back straight, has much more speed out of the corner, and is going to get the job done. There's Marius Fredrickson. Starting to realize this pack in a little bit more with each passing battle. Abelstead stays ahead somehow in position number 6. Ippolito dragged back into this as though he was already out, but it hasn't been curtains for him. Riding in the passenger seat, you see Marius Fredrickson behind in the Porsche. Drivers sort of dancing for position on track, trying to figure out where the best place to be is at the following corner to have the best chance of defending or overtaking as we head to that final corner onto the front straight one again. Abelstead 6th, Terrier Fredrickson 7th, Ippolito 8th, Marius Fredrickson 9th. This battle pack really heating up there, and in the background it's Cairns and Huziak, the 2 McLarens, sort of just hot lapping at the moment, and way in the background is Brioso in 12th position. Into turn number 1, Fredrickson maintains position number, Fredrickson P number 7 ahead of Ippolito. It's hard with the 2 Fredricksons nearby.
Yes, one of course Teria is P7 and Marius P9, being split by Simone Ippolito, and ahead of all of them we have Rasmus Abelstead, who's driving his BMW, being followed by the Astons. The Astons thus far not being able to make a move, but speaking of making a move, there goes Fredrickson on the inside of turn 5, but just closing the door, Abelstead. Yeah,
Abelstead, that's the second lap in a row he's missed that break point and has launched him a little bit further. And the drivers behind, they sense blood, but the problem is they're not able to get a bite. So for right now, they continue to sit behind. Look at the extremely defensive line there from Abelstead at the hairpin, at the back, or at the tail end of the front straight. It's going to be a switchback there from Terrier Fredrickson. Marius Fredrickson joining the fray down the inside there of the Italian will gladly take that position. Rasmus Abelstead also, in the meantime, getting overtaken by Terrier Fredrickson. So a bit of a shuffle there. It's going to be a Norwegian sandwich there for the Swedish driver, and if I know anything about the Nordic countries, there's always a little bit of friendly banter between them, but this is not going to be a sandwich that Abelstead wants to devour here. We've got pits coming out here. Ippolito's into the pits, Cairns is in the pits, Hearn as well into the pit lane, so these first rounds of pit stops coming through, but man, what a turn of events we've had, and look at the gap that Terrier has already built up to Abelstead.
Yes, Terje was just waiting to get a move there because he knows he has the pace. He knows he can get past, but he was just stuck behind the BMW. And once he got past, he can get those laps in and just pull away. But yeah, Abelstead getting passed by Terje Fredriksson and under pressure from Marius Fredriksson.
It seems like those two boys are inseparable, and I don't blame them. I mean, when you have the same last name, it's kind of expected. Not related, but there's still probably some camaraderie between them just because of that. But for just a moment, while we have a little bit of a lull in the action, I hope long enough to talk about it. Rasmus Abelstead came into this championship, a new face on the grid, new face in the OOR, ranked in the amateur class, understandably so when you look at his sort of qualification times that he was putting in prior to the season. We do have, when drivers do fill out the application and they do get accepted, of course, there is a sort of a qualification process to determine where you're going to be on the grid. So Abelstead was put in amateur class, but I mean, you're running extremely high up the grid. He has 415 points, just a smidge over 80 points clear of Brioso. I mean, this guy has been above and beyond the Call of Duty when it comes to the Sprint Series. I'm nothing short of impressed. It's incredible what he's done this season.
Yes, and yeah, nothing more to add to that. As Abelstead really been amazing this season, and yeah, I hope to see him again on the grid next season, which is going to begin in a few weeks, actually. So it's going to
About a
be
month.
exciting.
About a month, actually. We're starting up.
Oh, a few weeks.
Oh yeah, if you want to, if
Close
you want to
enough.
split hairs here.
Close enough in my books, as Rubouts gets into the pit lane for his mandatory stop.
Yep, Ippolito served his first pit stop and also took that 15-second penalty off. So the only penalties we see at the moment, Fredriksson and Vinogradov. So that'll get served, and then that should be, I believe, about half the grid. Rumbouts is in, so looking at a little bit less than half of the grid there, serving their first stop as we get just about under 56 minutes to go here. It's a very interesting line there from Terje Fredriksson, or from Marius Fredriksson, goodness me. Although your running order right now, Simon Bauer in position number 1, Vinogradov is second, Partez is third, Terje Fredriksson is fourth, Abelstead there in P5, but as I say that, he's starting to come under fire there from Marius Fredriksson in the 267 Porsche. Huziak in the 76 McLaren behind could also join in the battle here, although he's struggling with pace right now. And then it's Brioso, Hearn, Rumbouts top 10. Beauchart, Cairns, Cuthbert, Ippolito 11 to 14th. But Abelstead, despite losing the position, hasn't lost his composure, and Marius into the pit lane.
That is a very interesting pit entry there from Fredriksson, but yeah, into the pit lane for his mandatory stop. And we just wanted to point out Vinogradov, a loss to P2 so far.
Yep, of course the drivers ahead, Rumbouts, of course, one of them diving into the pit lane. Hearn as well has moved the Russian up a good bit. 15 seconds going to get added on. I wanted to, when Marius Fredriksson was going into the pit lane, I thought he might have sent it a little too much on the inside. I thought he was going to clip some of the barriers there. Thankfully, I was proven wrong. So that was a bit of a heart stopper there. Brioso as well into the pit lane, so that'll be just over half the grid. Getting those mandatory stops done. It's still your top 6 that have yet to go in, but we've had a very serious lull in the action. There's Ryan Cuthbert. Going to be playing blue flag to Vinogradov just behind.
Yes, and correction, half of the grid has completed only one of their 2 mandatory stops, so 6 drivers on this grid have to yet complete 2 of them, so yes.
And Vinogradov into the pits as well, almost doing exactly the same thing as Marius Fredriksson, just cuts it a little too close on the inside. And there's the behind him, that's Partez in the 195 Pro-Am Porsche, serving his first mandatory stop. Of course, Fredrickson, Bouchard, and Cairns, the other three Pro-Am drivers, have completed one stop already, so the double Porsches gonna be getting a fresh set of wheels on and doing some more possible damage with that. We have Rasmus Abelstead getting that first pit stop in as well. That just leaves Huziak, Terrier Fredrickson, and Simon Bauer yet to complete that first mandatory stop of 2. So things are going to be getting very interesting here, I think, once everybody gets that first stop out of the way. I wonder if we're going to see some, maybe, I don't want to say more aggressive driving, but possibly some more risk-taking, aggressive, speedier driving once these drivers get on fresh rubber and once they get up to temp.
Well, nobody can tell until they actually complete their stops, but I want to point out that Bartes might get past Vinogradov in the pit lane.
Oh, that's true, yeah, and it looks like he does so because of the 15 seconds added on to Vinogradov. That gives Bartes a chance to jump him in the pits despite being in second. And speaking of Vinogradov, out of the pits as well, Rasmus Abelsted's still sitting there and just off the jacks, so he'll be getting back out on track right then and there. So we'll see where he comes out, and it's just Huziak, Fredrickson, Terrier Fredrickson, I should probably say, and Simon Bauer, who have to get one stop out of the way. There's Rumbouts just sort of blowing on by Abelstead, no problem there at all, and just behind, I believe, is the 267 of Marius Fredrickson. I think Abelstead has had this sort of situation happen with Marius right behind him.
Yes, and at a moment in the race, he was between the two Fredricksons, if I'm not mistaken. So that is some deja vu happening for Abelstead right here.
Yep, and the inside, then the outside there for Marius. Another missed break point for Abelstead. It's happened lap after lap, and that invites Marius into position number 8 as he does get the move done before the corner, so he's going to look to open up the gap here as we head onto the front straight. Just up ahead is, I believe that's Bartes, who's had some pretty good runs, although I could be wrong, could be Vinogradov. And then in the background, we've got Bouchard and Cairns starting to heat up the debate for position number 9. Or sorry, number 10 rather. But yeah, that was a very clean, simple, textbook overtake from Marius Fredrickson.
Yes, of course, very clean and very, very nice. And Fredrickson and Huziak into the pit lane.
Yep.
And just as I say that, Fredrickson out of the pit lane. That only leaves Simon Bauer to complete his first mandatory stop.
Yep, and in the background, we're having a bit of a development here with Vinogradov chasing down Rumbouts. These guys have come to blows earlier in the season, and we could be seeing more of that right at the end. The battle for position number 4 is starting to get very interesting here as Rumbouts maybe struggling a bit for some grip. The best laps for both of these, because we can't go off of last lap because this is Vinogradov's first flying lap out of the pit lane, but best lap is for these two guys, a 43.94 for Rumbouts, a 43.84 for Vinogradov. So if these numbers are really to be sort of true to pace, as we see this, as these two guys continue to carry on, I wouldn't be too surprised if Vinogradov has an attacking chance on the Dutchman in due time, maybe in the next few laps or so.
Yes, well, overtake is possible, but we have to consider that Honda is very quick on the straights and completely overpowers the Porsche, so it's going to be very difficult for Vinogradov to make a move here.
Yep, and we join the battle for position 13. No matter where you go, there's always going to be something going down on the grid. Simone Ippolito running behind Urios Huziak in the 76 McLaren, weaving all over the place, so I don't know if the stewards are going to be too pleased with that. But for now, the positions stayed the same. Huziak ahead of Ippolito.
Yes, of course, Uroš Huziak ahead of Ippolito, and that weaving, I don't think it's anything malicious at all, as we join Cairns and Bouchard for the battle for position number 10 as Simon Bauer goes into the pit lane to serve his first mandatory stop.
Yep, what an absolute race that Bowers had. He's still got a little bit of time before he can really change things. I saw, what was that up ahead? I saw a couple of drivers going at it. It's Abelstead, I think, while we were on board there with Cairns, did get overtaken for position number 7, so Marius Fredriksson more than happy to take that. Bart Beauchart has not had a chance to breathe, it feels like, this entire race as Cairns bearing down on him. Position number 9, 2 cars, similar colors, different manufacturers, different teams as Beauchart gets on the grass, has to settle for the inside line. Could hold on to this position door to door as we head down towards the remaining corners before that back straight, but Cairns gets the move done and overtakes position number 9 here at Catalunya, or at Barcelona. What am I thinking?
It is Catalunya, Barcelona.
I'm thinking, you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking is Catalunya as its own place, like, you know, like how Barcelona its own place, and like,
oh yeah,
that's what I'm thinking.
It doesn't really matter because the track is both in Barcelona and Barcelona is in Catalunya, so whatever you say is correct, technically.
And being technically correct is the best kind of correct.
Yes, and well, Bouchard and Cairns. Cairns seems to be building a gap right now, and here we are at another battle for P12 with Brioso, Huziak, and Ippolito, with 46 minutes to go, so that's going to be quite interesting.
Yep, and with Simon Bauer, I'd like to mention, despite that pit stop, comes out in first position, so it hasn't really mattered. The only thing it's really done is made his gap to Hearn a bit less than it was before. It's only a couple of seconds now. Marius Fredriksson as well, trying to find a little bit of space. Rumbouts, I think, slowly starting to lose the stamina compared to Vinogradov. The last lap for Rumbouts, a 44.17. Vinogradov, it's a 43.92. So a few tenths, or a couple tenths between them, rather. And when you have 46 minutes to go and you've got someone who's got pace like that and they're about half a second behind, is it really going to be possible? Huziak, hold on, we got to roll this one back. Charles, take us through it. What happens?
Well, Huziak here, it seems like turn 3 here. Just going well so far, and just clips the back of Brioso, which sends both of them spinning. Very unfortunate, and Huziak will be getting a penalty for that, unfortunately.
Completely self-inflicted, though. As he leaves the server, Huziak, that McLaren is retired from the session. You hate to see it. It was late braking, and he just spun himself. It wasn't assisted in any sort of way.
Yes, very unfortunate, but I think Huziak could maybe argue that Brioso turned into him, but we'll leave that one to the stewards.
Well, they seem to have given Brioso a penalty of 5 seconds from an incident on lap 11, so that's not what's happened recently, thankfully. As Rasmus Abelstead dives down the inside, completely misses the break point, and for Fredriksson, it's a little bit of dodging, and he'll just be more than happy to keep that position 7 again.
Yes, well, bit of late braking, but here we are with the battle for P4. Yes, that is P4. Rumbouts and Vinogradov.
Yep, these two have been keeping each other quite comfy, or quite company, rather, excuse me, here in position number 4. The Porsche gonna be banking on a lot of slipstream and maybe some botched corners there from the number 1 Honda. And that is really, it seems like something simple you can do, but to be consistently getting closer and closer each lap, that's another thing entirely for Rumbouts. Going to be using all of the Honda's advantages over the Porsche where it can. Definitely the front straight and the back straight, that top end acceleration is so much better than the Porsche, and through some of these slower corners, I believe the handling's a bit better as well.
It might be. I never drove either of these cars, but yeah, I will trust you.
Well, I mean, I have. It's been a while since I've driven too much. I know the Porsche, when you get to these lower sort of fuel loads, is far more likely to just sort of look at you funny and then try to kill you because you took the corner a little bit incorrectly. That back end is notorious for stepping out on pretty much any driver. If you just show a little bit of complacency, this thing requires all of the dedication and all of the respect, really. And for Vinogradov, doing just that, he is really honed in on the Porsche. We have not seen too many mistakes out of him, and that shows.
Yes, in my opinion, the Porsche is a very setup-based car. If you can get a good setup and set it up correctly for the race, you will be very happy. But uh, of course, the fuel tank being in the front does not help at all. So it's quite tricky to drive over a long stint.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And with how long some of these races have been and how many hours these drivers put in, it's not all too uncommon, as there is a touch there as Rumbouts is spun around. And shout outs to Vinogradov there. A flash of the lights there from the Dutchman. I don't know if that was a thank you or what are you doing, but they're able to redress the position. And that'll give Thierry Fredriksson some nice seating for this arrangement.
Yes, very unfortunate incident there, but nice from Vinogradov to return the position back to Rumbauts. And yes, as you said, Terje Fredriksson now has some really nice goals ahead of him, just waiting.
Yeah, but when you look at the pace of a lot of these drivers, Fredriksson hasn't really been closing the gap up. His best lap is almost a full second. Or sorry, no, it's about a tenth. I was looking at the wrong Fredriksson again. Shocker. This Fredriksson right here, Terrier, his fastest lap is almost a full second ahead of Marius. So yeah, but for these other two guys, he's about a tenth behind Vinogradov and 2/10 behind Rumbout. So even if he were to be in this position for a while, based off of trends, it would have been just a losing battle.
Yes, and well, not much to comment on. Pace, of course, in motorsport is what I think matters the most alongside safety. So, yeah, if something else happens with Vinogradov or Rumbouts, which I hope doesn't happen, it might see Fredriksson ahead of them. So,
Well, we'll just have to wait and see if that is the case. Right now, Rumbout's running away with it. Vinogradov will have to rebuild the land he's unfortunately destroyed himself with the tap, of course. And respect and shoutouts to both of them for, giving the positions back for Rumbouts. This is pretty much what he wants right now, is he is going to build that gap up quite quickly compared to Vinogradov's gap to Thierry Fredriksson, and closing those two drivers together, fourth and fifth, has not gone as quickly as we would have expected, but 40 minutes to go here for the final race of the season. Anything can happen. The last lap for Rumbouts, a 44.24 compared to Vinogradov's 44.37, and then a 44.40 for Thierry Fredriksson. So yeah, there you go. A 2/10 still is the story between all of these drivers.
well, yeah, we're just waiting for a battle to commence here at Barcelona, to be honest. Not much to comment on between the drivers so far, except that Fredriksson seems to be closing the gap to Vinogradov quite quickly.
Well, maybe. It's probably a little deceptive with these corners, of course, the gaps when you look at sort of real-time deltas. It's a lot closer than it actually looks, but it isn't until you actually exit the corner and maybe get onto these longer stretches of track that you do see the true pace. But yeah, the last lap being a tenth slower for, or actually no, it's about 300ths rather for Fredriksson. So maybe could close the gap down. Maybe has to settle in for position number 6. Of course, every driver on the grid still has one more mandatory stop to complete before the end of the race. So that could also switch up the grid. It sort of brings into question, do you mirror the person ahead of you, or should you maybe go for the undercut or maybe an overcut? What's the strategy? What do you think?
I I think the strategy is definitely not to cut the final chicane, but
Ooh,
wow, that was very close from Vinogradov. And well, here you go, the answer.
it's
Vinogradov thinks the
having some
uh,
issues there.
um
That's
what?
I think he
I
might have
am
gone a little too quick over the pit line because he got loose out of the corner and he was sliding all over the place and he just sort of went right on into the building there. That's I don't know.
well, I do not know what happened, but um well, either way, I think the strategy on this track is really just an overcut because the tires on the first lap are very not very effective. So if you can get a good in lap on your overcut, you can definitely make a pass happen. But I am still unsure what happened to Vinogradov.
Well, he teleported back to the pit, so that was the thing because he came in, he hit the side of the building, and the car immediately went into the pit box. I'm not seeing anything in the EU blue chat room. What I do see is a warning for Abelstead for a collision on lap 11. Huziak has picked up 15 seconds, but of course he's gone. That was the collision we saw earlier in the race, so those penalties don't really matter all too much. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think this is a pit stop. This might be a possible race retirement.
Perhaps the game teleported Vinogradov to the pit lane, and now he has to wait 3 minutes for his pit stop, which which will be unfortunate, but I am really not sure what happened there. And he is disconnected from the server, so whatever it was not good.
No, it might be that disconnect or maybe the retirement. We've had some issues I know in the past with some drivers getting disconnected from a server. I know here in the booth we've had the same thing happen where everybody gets disconnected. Granted, part of that was because of my internet, but also because everyone lost connection to the server. But yeah, 2 retirements here. Huziak and Vinogradov. Very unfortunate to see, really, especially at the end of the season with how much those 2 drivers have really participated this season. You always want to make it to the final checkered flag, but it looks like not in the cards here.
Yes, yeah, as you said, I think it is very unfortunate, and yeah, final race of the season, you don't want to get a result like that, and well, not much to comment on other than that.
No, not really. Although Marius Fredriksson, has Rasmus Abelstead behind him. He's been sitting there for, it feels like a good while now. If we look at the last lap times, it is Abelstead that has come out on top by just about a 1/10 of a second over the Porsche ahead, so he'll be looking to take advantage of that and try to close the gap, but doesn't really get the best exit out of the corner. Fredriksson a little wide, it looks like, and a little wide again. Has to go away from the sausage curve on the inside there. And
And actually, yes, and actually seems to have gained time from cutting the chicane. I think he will have to let the BMW pass because yeah, you cannot take that line to gain time.
Yeah, no, or maybe at the very least just sort of slowing down a bit and letting Abelstead get close to him again. It wasn't a big advantage, but it looks like that has happened just now as Abelstead is all over the rear wing and steps out to maybe get a bit of breathing room. Beauchart into the pit lane to serve that final pit stop. 34 minutes to go here in the race, and it looks like position number 6 has not been settled just yet. Just a couple of tenths between these two.
Yes, and Abelstead just breaks late again into turn 4. Happened like God knows how many times in this race.
Turn 5. I was to do a quick count in my head. It is turn 5.
Oh, turn 5.
It's okay. Hey, listen,
Sorry.
I forget. I forget turn numbers all the time. It's all right. But yeah, no, he's missed his break point there. I don't know how many times that we've seen it about 4 times. I don't know if there's been more outside of that, but it is really hurting his progress when it comes to overtaking. So for now, Fredrickson has a little chance to maybe pop an orange slice in and regain his energy, but Abelstead just once again back at it.
Yes, and well, behind the Porsche should be very close on the straight. Not the greatest exit there out of the chicane, but gets the slipstream on the main straight. We will see by the beginning of turn 1 where Abelstead is.
Yep, and even with the slipstream pulls in rather closely, he was peeking under the wing there for a second, but has to just break a little bit early. Didn't have the chance there for the overtake. Marius Fredrickson holding on, although hasn't got the best line, it looks like. Abelstead, though, as well, sort of misjudging the corner. So for the 267, Porsche remains position number 6, 34 BMW. The only amateur class, or sorry, not the only amateur class. Of course, Brioso is amateur class rating, but is silver apparently in the server. But so double amateur class drivers here. One of them doing extremely well as Fredrickson gets a little bit of a snap of oversteer, but catches it beautifully.
Yes, and that allows Abelstead to get closer as Daniel Hearn gets into the pit lane. And,
Oh yeah, yep.
Yes, that will be for his final mandatory stop. So that leaves Bouchard and Hearn, the only drivers who have completed all of their stops in this race so far, with 31 minutes to go till the end of the race. Well, Simon Bauer leads the race. Behind him, we will have Partes, Rumbouts, Fredrickson, another Fredrickson, Abelstead, Cairns, Ippolito, Cuthbert, Brioso, and at the end, Bouchard.
Yeah, well, we look here at the front straight, and out of the final corner, you do see Marius Fredrickson and Rasmus Abelstead exit the corner. Same with Evan Cairns. And Hearn is on the move, but I think you may have been right. He's going to come out behind the McLaren and possibly behind Ippolito. Let's see what this looks like as he finally can turn the pit limiter off. And it looks like Daniel Hearn has gotten away with it and will just barely stay ahead of that Aston Martin, who just comes flying in. Cuthbert into the pit lane as well.
Yes, Cuthbert for his mandatory stop again, yes. We have, of course, 2 mandatory stops to serve in this an hour and 20-minute race, so yes, Ippolito on the back of Daniel Hearn, but of course still has to pit.
Yep, and it's 3 drivers currently who have served those pit stops, and everyone else still has to do at least one by the end of this race. This man right here, Viardi Rumbouts, is one of them. Behind him, Terje Fredrickson as well. Daniel Hearn, Marius Fredrickson. We've had, it seems like, sort of accordion effect on a lot of these drivers, just gaining and losing and not really pulling away or making moves happen. Although Abelstead, watch out, he's getting a little racy.
Yes, Abelstead again on the back of Marius Fredrickson. Well, in the chicane he's pretty close, but we will see how it all plays out on the main straight.
Yep, and I know he's been sitting in the slipstream, but you can see he's actually a little bit further now before those headlights just peering over the wing, but there's actually, looks like the sort of the bags under the eyes, if you will, are also starting to show. So even with that slipstream, Abelstead isn't really able to make anything happen, as he, again, just a slight misjudgment on the brake point. Daniel Hearn as well, gifting a slipstream over to Ippolito, manages to stay ahead. The Aston Martin is giving this Porsche a lot of hassle.
Well, yeah, but The Porsche of Daniel Hurd has just come out of the pit lane. The tires are not up to temperature, while Ippolito still has not served his mandatory stop. So I do not think it really matters if Ippolito gets past her or not.
Yep. I mean, maybe a strategic call gives that advantage to one driver by the end, but a little too early to call here. We rejoin Rumbouts in position number 3 right now is Terje Fredriksson doing a very good job of keeping up. In fact, has about a 500th of a second advantage on that last lap over the Honda, but of course, with the top end the Honda has, even with the slipstream, I don't think Terje is going to get all too much of a boost here down the front straight. Does get a little bit of something, but it can't really get anything more than sort of a passing glance, if you will.
Well, as you said, the Honda is very quick on the straights, and Terje Fredriksson will have to work to get past Rumbouts in the corners, which seems to be the Aston seems to be much faster than the Honda there right now, as Cairns and Ippolito go into the pit lane to serve their mandatory stop.
Yeah, but you can't really call a lap over one corner. I mean, you got to look at where Rumbouts is faster than Terje, and that's where he's gaining all that time back, or at the very least, keeping the gap what it is. When we look at sector times, so that first and second sector is where Rumbouts is really actually a lot faster. If you base it off of the best lap, Rumbouts' sector 1 is a 10th faster, sector 2 is 3/10. Sector 3 is just about a 10th. But when you look at the last lap, Fredriksson's first sector was 2/10 quicker, but then that's immediately flip-flopped with Rumbouts' 2/10 of a sector 2 faster. And then in sector 3, it's just that extra 10th. So it's about a 10th overall on these laps for both of these guys.
That is interesting information that you just gave everybody here, but yeah, Rumbouts and Fredriksson here battling for position. So far, Rumbouts staying ahead.
Yep, and again, another pulling off to the right side of the track, tries to, just put up a defense. Not like it's all too necessary, of course, because the same thing happened the last time, and there wasn't anything that Terje could have done to overtake. So Rumbouts, I think, sort of just making sure that it isn't possible for an overtake, as Abel said, pulls into the pit lane here for his final mandatory stop. That will leave Brioso, Marius, and Terje Fredriksson, Rumbouts, Partez, and Bauer, the only drivers who have yet to serve that final stop. And of course, Brioso 5 seconds getting added on, but that's not really all too much.
Yes, as you said, not too much, because 5 seconds over an hour and 20 minutes, well, it's very little. I'd say less than 1% of the race, which does not quite matter, as he is ahead of Cairns by quite a margin.
Yep, and that continues to be a lot of the case here. A lot of very large gaps. I mean, when you look at Simon Bauer, I don't know. Ooh, Fredriksson gets very antsy out of the final, or out of that corner. So that's not what he wants. But yeah, no, there's a lot of large gaps. What is the gap from Bauer to Partez? Because it's still sitting at a lap, and as he crosses the line,
well,
it
is a lap.
Too big for the scoring column to show, apparently.
Yeah.
And Rumbouts into the pit lane, so
yeah,
that'll give Terje. And
Fredriksson gets past Rumbouts as he goes into the pit lane to serve his mandatory stop, which promotes Fredriksson to P3. So, as I said earlier on, the overcut might be the strategy to go at this track. So we will see if that is correct or not, as we just briefly saw the gap from Partez to Bauer was about 38 seconds.
Well, let's open the track map here. We're gonna just keep the camera here on Partez. So when we open the track map, we see that red dot, and you can see the triangle of the number 100, that's Simon Bauer going through the final chicane right now. Um,
Yes. Going to
that's
the final chicane as Bartes is just not even in the final sector of the lap. That
no,
is, well, interesting to say at least, but the gap obviously is huge as Roombots has just started rolling out of his pit stall.
yep. I mean, the gap is almost 40 seconds between Bauer and Partez, so that's a little bit of trivia for you to sort of think about.
Yep, and I think at least that is the biggest gap we have seen Bauer pull away in OOR so far. And Bartes into the pit lane now.
Yep, so that'll be the final stop here for the pole. Not only for this race, but for the season, hopefully. Cuthbert has picked up 10 seconds. That is very surprising. That is going to be for a collision on lap 28. So that is going to get added on at the end. That's going to be a nice little bit of salt thrown on him at the end. He's running ahead of Beauchart, and he's got to pull out 10 seconds if he wants to hold on to P11.
Yes, and Fredrickson into the pit lane now, so we will see how the strategy plays out. And who's that?
The other
Another
Fredrickson.
Fredrickson in the pit lane. Yes, as I said, we will see how the strategy plays out for what's his name?
Terrier Fredrickson?
Yeah, for Terje Fredrickson, if he will get past VRD Roomboats.
Well, it's, I don't know. Let's take a look at the track map. So, Rumbout's number 1 is coming around the final corner just now. Terrier, of course, in the pit stall, has been released. So, let's see where this puts him. You can see Rumbout's there in the Honda on the left side, and, well, there's already so much speed underneath the hood of the number 1 that he is just going to cruise on by. There is no challenge at all. And for Rumbouts, it's an easy P number 4 for him.
Yes, that is true, and well, prove me wrong. The overcut it does not work, so yeah,
Yeah,
the more you know.
That's the beauty of racing. There's all these little things you can learn as you sort of just get more and more time under your belt. Marius Fredrickson out of the pit lane and right back in front of Ippolito. So the only drivers who have not served a pit stop is Brioso, who is just getting towards Sector 2 at the moment, I believe. Oh, no, is already in Sector 2, excuse me. And Simon Bauer, who is in Sector 3 at the moment. So maybe going into the pit lane, possibly. I, for a second, thought he was somewhere else entirely. My brain stopped working. So yeah, just these two guys have to pit for tires, and then that'll be that.
And look who is behind Simon Bauer.
No, that's Partez, who's a lap down. Daniel Hearn's running P2 right now, and he is just getting through turn 1 and 2 and 3 right now. I mean, this is an insane gap, and Simon Bauer, for the last time this season, is going to pit here at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya, and the gap he has over Daniel Hearn is quite significant, so this should not be anything for him to really worry about. Of course, is on the lead lap, so I don't know. It's been insane.
It's safe to say he will get out ahead of Hearn.
Yep, and there's Brioso as well in the background, getting his final stop out of the way. He'll have to sit for an extra 5 seconds, of course, to serve that penalty from earlier. So yeah, for the last time, the pit crews come out and do their job, and we rejoin this battle here. Who is it? It is Fredrickson under a lot of pressure. There's Ippolito with the slipstream, with the drive. Pulls to the right side, down to turn number 1 will be the inside line for the Aston Martin. Actually gets the move done prior to the corner, and Fredrickson has to give it up.
I am shocked by that move. That is amazing that what Ippolito has just done. I mean, that is some bravery to cut across there to the racing line that late. I mean, wow. just impressive he managed to do that, really.
I know, that was beautifully orchestrated from Ippolito. So for him, he'll be happy to hold on to P6. It feels like it's been a long time coming when you look at their their lap speeds. So yeah, I think this was just something that we were waiting to happen. Brioso is out of the pit lane. Simon Bauer is back out, a 69-second gap just about to Daniel Hearn. And for him, he's just going to be turning laps until the final flag falls. There's Cuthbert just ahead of him in the number 13 McLaren.
Never mind, the gap to Hearn is 10 seconds. It just updated now. I'm guessing the 69 seconds was before the pit
Oh, yeah.
stops. So yeah, now it is just 10 seconds, which is, of course, still, well, very significant. And safe to say, Bauer will just be trying to not make a mistake, pray his internet works, and go to the end of the race.
Well, here's the thing. Even if for some reason Bauer disconnects, whatever that reason may be, Roomboutz will have to go all the way up from what would be third position, of course, because Hearn, Partez, and Roomboutz would all get promoted up one position because the leader's gone. But Roomboutz would have to get around both Hearn and Partez by the end of the race if he wants to win the Pro Championship and the overall championship, because of course he is 142 points down. And when you look at the point split, the only position that gives anything more than 142 points is position number 1, which is 150 points. So yeah, I think for Bauer, he may be safe. Same with Hearn and Partez and Roomboutz, but who knows? Stranger things have happened. I don't want to say anything. Knock on wood.
I mean, we had a couple of disconnects in, what was that, Snetterton?
I
Yes,
believe so.
Yes, even you and I got disconnected, so I think anything can happen with 16 minutes left in the race, as Snetterton proved when it happened with just about 5 minutes till the end. So let's hope that such things do not occur at this race.
Yep, and I'm sure the race stewards were having just a grand old time having to sort out all of the mess that was that race. But it didn't cause too much of a hiccup in the offices, and, well, here we are at the final race of the season. Of course, things have carried on beautifully here at Catalunya. It's been a very solid race. We had a lot of action at the start, and then there was some sort of slow moments in the middle, but they've been picking up battles and putting them down, and right now we're sort of just driving around. There's no real battles. It's just sort of running the circuit until the end for the last 16 or so minutes. Only 2 retirements this evening.
Yes, unfortunate retirements, but it's racing, it happens, and yeah, 15 and a half minutes to go in the race. No real battles here, as you said, and yeah, not much to comment on until the end of the race, and yeah.
Yep, so for a lot of these guys, we hope to see them again next season, of course. And I'm excited to see all the new faces that join us here in the EU. It's always nice when you have returning drivers and those newer drivers. It really adds a really good element of suspense, because not only do you have those guys who have been around for a while, they know how everyone drives, but you also have the task of learning how the others are driving, how those newer guys are driving. So obviously we can't comment on anything just yet. We have about a month to go before the 13th season kicks off. Mark your calendars. It'll be May 25th when we see you guys back on the grid here for the Simrigs Sprint Series. I will certainly be here.
Well, I will also be here, so looking forward to the next season of OOR. In this season, we have had amazing racing all the way from Paul Ricard to Barcelona. So, as Simone Polito decides, track limits are not for him.
No, not at the final chicane. Yeah, I think with the calendar we've had this season, I have to kind of go back on my notes a little bit to see what the schedule looked like. We had Paul Ricard.
Paul Ricard, Brent Hatch,
Yep.
Then we had Misano, Snetterton.
Yep, Snetterton, Suzuka, Donington, Hungary, and Barcelona. We did have 2 rounds, one at Bathurst, one at Imola. Those were non-competitive rounds, so we weren't streaming those because we actually had we had our 12 hours of Bathurst event going on, and we also had our
10 hours of Imola, which I participated in, and speedrun a disqualification.
disqualification any percent speedrun, and let me tell you, my co-commentator is the world record holder, and I'm very proud of him.
Yep.
But it's I'd say looking at the tracks we had this season, it was really good. I really enjoyed it, and I believe there was a leak. I say leak with quotation marks, of course. With the races or the tracks from next season, and there's a couple that are returning. I don't know if the format will be non-competitive for those, but we do have some very fun tracks that I am absolutely looking forward to. But I won't say anything. We got to keep it a surprise, at least for those that haven't already seen it.
Yes, of course. I will just say we have, well, uh, 6 of the best tracks and a sandpit next season. So, well, that's going to be interesting.
I'm curious as to what you deem as 6 of the best tracks. That might be a bit of a controversial take.
I mean, I didn't say anything, so
That's true. Okay.
interpret it how you like.
All right. Well, I'm only seeing a couple of the best tracks. Let's see, how many would I consider? Let's see. 1, 2, 3. All right, I got 4. So yeah, we'll go with that. Of course, we don't know formats. We don't know weather. We don't know, where if there are
Well,
going
we
to be
never
any
know
breaks.
weather, to be honest. It's always the aspect of randomness that we have, and I think it just brings that little bit more of wow, that's exciting to the
Yeah,
race.
I agree. I think we should maybe do some rain dances. Maybe hope for a little bit of more moisture, because it's always fun. I think watching wet weather races, because when you have drivers who are, these guys are obviously spending the week leading up to the race preparing for the track they're going to be on. It's always in these exact same conditions. You have an optimum track. It's sunny. There's no clouds. The temperatures are beautiful. The car's already up to temp in terms of tires and brakes, and of course pressures as well for the tires. But with rainy races, a lot of that, not a lot of that, but I'd say a decent chunk of that gets kind of thrown out the window, especially when you have to make these incredibly quick adjustments to say, okay, well, this, the traction control needs to be here, the ABS needs to be here, maybe you start closing some brake ducts a little bit, you change your aero package, you change your, your dampeners, your suspension, you change your camber. It's always...
It's basically everything on the car
Yeah,
to
exactly.
adjust it to be more, how do I say it, more drivable in the rain. So, it always makes for interesting setups, and sometimes you make a setup and, well, you come to it later and you're like, what is this?
Yeah, you realize you're like, oh, I can't use this dry one. This is ridiculous. And Brioso picks up drive-through for a track limits violation, of course. So get that served in 3 laps or get disqualified. Not what we want. So we'll see this driver here in the 83 McLaren. Not what he wants to do to end his season, but he'll have to do it. Here's Barthez just slipping by off a blue flag.
Yep, and speaking of, well, yeah, he has 3 laps, otherwise he gets disqualified, as I learned in Imola, so that was fun.
Again, you're
Give me
speed
30
running.
minutes and I can disqualify the car for just $10.99.
Well, how much
Either
does this
way,
game cost?
I don't know,
It's
but
been
the
a
entry
while.
fee was $10,
Oh,
so
there you go. Yeah, so for $10 plus however much this game costs, I'm gonna actually look this up right now because I'm very curious.
I'm
But
gonna guess, around $15, maybe,
oops, I
for
hit the
just
button.
base
So,
game.
40 actually. This game's
What?
$40. Yeah, $40 for the base
Really?
game and another. I mean, that's obviously not including taxes. Also, sorry for that scary sound. I forgot I had the trailer volume up on literally every game on the Steam store. My apologies. And then it's another, get this, just a bit under $90 for all of the DLC. That includes the America Track Pack, the Challengers Pack, the GT4 Pack, the British GT Pack,
Wow.
the Intercontinental GT Pack, and the 2020 GT World Challenge Pack. I've bought all of it.
So,
I have zero regrets.
hold on. Yeah, so hold on, Nick. You're telling me I spent $150 on this track without even realizing it? On this game, I
Possibly.
mean?
I mean, hey,
Oh,
would you rather
well,
spend $150 on a GT3 racing game or God knows how much on iRacing? Not to
Well,
throw
I-
any shade here. Not to throw any shade.
Well, I already spent then 150 on ICC and 150 on iRacing, so no regrets on any of them. So
There you go. And a good
I
point
get
from
it.
Hudevel. This game does actually go on sale pretty often, along with
Yes.
Assetto Corsa
Yeah.
itself. So you could say you're getting maybe a little bit less than $40. I think it usually goes on sale for what, like 30?
Yeah, maybe. Once it was like for 50% and I got 2 DLC for that, so maybe I spent a little bit less than 150, but it's definitely over $100, so still a lot, but not quite as much as I would spend on iRacing, so we're not gonna comment on any opinions on that. So
No, definitely not.
yep, we have 7 minutes left in the race. Simon Bauer leading the pack. The gap to Daniel Kern is so huge that it is not known. Gap to Daniel Partes from Daniel Kern is 33 seconds, so no worries there. And
Let's look at the
well,
the track map here. You can see Bauer is, location-wise was very close to Hearn there for just a second, but out of the final corner. So 15 and a half seconds right now is the Germans' lead over the Britain. And then Rumbouts, who we're actually riding on board with right now, is just about halfway through Sector 2, while Bauer is speeding down towards turn towards 1. You can see just how much pace was behind that little triangle as he was getting ready to hit the brakes, but I think for the time being, I think for the next 6.5, we may be seeing the final results here.
we might, but a thing I wanted to point out, in the last 30 minutes of this race, Rumbouts has closed in 9 seconds to Iridios Partes.
Oh, so he has been reeling him in a little bit. We'll get a nice little chase cam here. It says Rumbouts is in third. Oh, he has gotten around Partes. What in the world?
What he has?
Apparently.
When?
Not certain
When
what
did
happened.
that happen?
It might have happened probably a little bit beyond the veil. Or actually, you know what? Maybe if we go back. Oh, no, it's probably going to be too far, because the only options I have are... We can do 45 seconds. Let's try that. Let's see... Oh!
Oh, yes, okay, so Partes went off before the final chicane. That is very unfortunate from the Polish driver, but yes, that does give Rumbouts P3 in this race. That must be heartbreaking for Iridios.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what happened. So, of course, I can't make it through the last race without one final commentator's curse. My apologies, Partes. I'm sure I'll be seeing a nice little DM later on, probably in Polish, that I'll have to Google Translate. I'd also like to mention that is the first time I've used the custom instant replay rewind, because I have 10, 15, 20, 30 seconds and a minute. That is the first time I've ever put a custom value in, and I probably won't do it again. But yeah, there's Rumbouts on the podium again. I mean, he's been on the podium a lot this season, so I think he'll be more than happy to take a final podium here at the last race. Whoa, and he gets wide.
Yes,
Hold on.
and as you say, Rumbouts goes off the track in the final chicane, which allows Iridios Partes to close the gap. This is far from over here for position number 3.
Yeah, Rumbouts, I think, getting a little bit too eager there, and thankfully didn't have the same sort of off that Partes had. So we could be seeing these two coming to blows later on. Cairns has had Abelstead behind him for a while. I think that gap has been closing up, and it looks like it has because, or no, sorry, it actually has. Yeah, Cairns has a 45.62. Rasmussen has, or Rasmussen, I'm thinking of someone else entirely. Abelstead, excuse me, goodness, I'll get that right one day. Has a last lap that is 0.6 faster than Cairns, so we may have some maybe final battles. And there's Simon Bauer, who is not even a part of this, apparently not willing to not have the camera on him and having to go where we are.
Well, yeah, he does not exactly have to have the camera on him to lead the race and completely dominate the field, but here we have Rumbouts and Partez, who are battling for position number 3, and Partez has closed into Rumbouts 3/10 in the last lap.
Yep, the last lap, Rumbouts' time was about a second slower. Of course, he had that off, so that is going to take a chunk of time out of his pace. But as we get through this final chicane, we'll see what their lap times are looking like. We'll see if there is as much chipping as we see Terje Fredriksson as well entering frame. So could maybe get something if these guys battle a little too much. So across the line, Rumbouts' lap is 100th slower than Partez, but the gap right now a little bit over a second. So there's quite a tall order.
No, the gap is
no, it's not.
Intense.
You're right. I'm sorry. I'm looking at like two numbers, and my brain's trying to figure out which one is the correct one. And one thing
all is good, as Bouchard has a little bit of a moment out of turn 5, but not to worry, we have 2 minutes left, and, well, the gap now between Partez and Rumbouts is over a second, so I'm just gonna say you're speaking what the future has to hold for us. So, anyway, Simon Bauer, over the line, is going on his final lap.
Yep. The last lap started here, the last lap of the season, ladies and gentlemen. I think we'll spend some time here with Simon Bauer. We'll keep an eye on the gap, of course, between Rumbouts and Partez and go to it if there's any sort of battling. But man, what a season this guy has had. He has 896 points coming into this race. Pole position gives him 901, and then of course, fastest lap, an extra 3, 904 points in total, and with a win here, it's going to be 1,054 points for the German. And for Rumbouts, that is a far more insurmountable task than the 141 points he came into this race with, as he sits P3 at the moment. But Simon Bauer, the last tour here of Catalunya, I mean, what else is there to say?
Well, there is not much to say, because Simon Bauer has come from Paul Ricard, won the first 2 races, allowed Rumbouts to have a race, probably gifted him that one, maybe not, and then went on to dominate the rest of the season, it seems like, and, well, into the final chicane, Simon Bauer. We'll just wait for him to get to the final corner.
Yeah,
because we don't really have much to say.
No, it's we said all we could have said, but yep, Simon Bauer out of the final corner for the last time here at Catalunya, flashes a light side to side. Ladies and gentlemen, Simon Bauer in extremely convincing fashion is not only going to be your pro class champion, but he is going to be the Simrigs Season 12 Sprint Series champion. Here's Daniel Hearn out of the final corner as well for the last time. He'll be more than thrilled to pick up that podium position, and look at the gap we have to Rumbouts. So close, but so far. Abelstead and Cairns will be picking up their respective class championships. And now at this point, we just wait for everybody to cross the line.
Yes, well, Rumbouts here in P3 just has 2 corners to go to not make a mistake, and well, behind him we have Partez And behind him, we have Tarja Fredriksson, who is leading by 30 seconds to Simone Ippolito.
Yep, what Simone Ippolito. We've had a wondrous time watching him on track. Has had some pretty solid performances here this season, and obviously another driver we hope to see back again. We still have Marius Fredriksson and Brioso, who have to finish their laps. For Ippolito, he'll get this one all sorted out in just a couple of seconds. Marius Fredriksson, if I am to be correct, there's is that Rumbout's doing donuts? Yes, it is on the front straight. You do those donuts, man. You've earned them. You haven't quite earned them as well as Bauer's earned his, but he'll be more than happy to take advantage of that. There's Marius Fredriksson across the line, and Brioso right on cue. Ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for the season. We're done. That's it.
Yep, we are all done and dusted here with OR Season 12. Well, what a season it has been.
Yep, a start to finish, like you said, Bauer won that first couple races at Paul Ricard and then just ran away with it and hadn't looked back at all this season. So, it's been amazing to watch, honestly, and I hope to see a lot of these guys again back next season. But yeah, that's it for the championship. Everything is done and dusted. Abelstead, Bauer, and Cairns are picking up their respective trophies. Bauer for pro and just overall, and then Abelstead for amateur class, and then Cairns for the pro-am category. And even with the low driver count, we still had, I'd say, a pretty exciting race.
Yes, indeed, a very exciting race and a very exciting championship that we have had here in OR. Much clean racing and, of course, what can I say? Really, it's been a great championship.
Yep, it has. So let's take one final look at the standings. We'll hopefully be getting some of the drivers in here for an interview your champions, but if not, no worries. So overall, it is Bauer on top, 18.3 seconds clear of Hearn and Rumbout, that top three. Into the Pro-Am category, it's Partez taking home that one, Fredriksson and Cairns, but of course it's Cairns that takes home the championship for these guys. And then the amateur class, we'll say Abelstead and Brioso. Brioso, of course, being silver, but in the standings is right here in the red category with Abelstead. But that's your final standings. That's everything.
Yes, that is everything, and well, we might just have Cairns and Simon Bauer up for an interview. We just have to wait a minute here, so yes.
Yep.
Awkward silence now.
Yep, Abelstead has to go. I think it's pretty late over there in
Yes, it's 10 p.m.
in Sweden. I honestly sometimes I forget where some of these drivers are at until like the very last second. I realize, oh yeah, he's from there, she's from there. This person drives over here, but then sometimes they go to this country because they do this. It's like, man, just stay seated, man.
Oh yeah.
At least in the U.S.
Yeah.
It's simple. It's one big country. There's states. Thankfully, I don't have to be like, oh, this person's from this state. I don't know where any of the American drivers are from. I don't really care what state they're from because I don't know.
Yes. Well, not much to comment on, but of course, in about 5 hours, if I'm correct, we will have the NA final race of the season. So join us for that if you are not busy. But yeah,
Yep.
it's a great
think-
race here, a great championship, and well, it does not look like we will have any interviews here unless Bauer and Cairns show up.
Yep. Just to sort of, I guess, give a bit of a preview as to what's going down over in North America. When we look at the sign-in sheet, the three of the top four drivers have not marked attendance, which is a bit of an issue. But the big thing, the big story, is that effectively because those top four, or three of the top four, haven't marked attendance, we could be seeing a two-way fight for the title. Of course, there's a 70-point gap to Renato Dornelis, who is the leading driver, in North America. But to overcome that is going to be a bit of a challenge for Javier Marquez and Timothy Flomger. Flomger is 94 points back, and then the Pro-Am Championship is still yet to be decided, and I believe the amateurs are all set. But yeah, there's a lot going on in North America with the drivers there, and of course that'll be their final race of the season. And then from then we'll put the cars in the garage and take a well-deserved break. Charles, how are you going to spend your break?
That is an excellent question. Well, just a few drinks here and there, and just gonna relax over the break, you know?
No, I already got my
I
drinks.
mean, a few drinks here and there, that is pretty much my everyday, but we will not talk about that, you know.
No, I hear you. But, well, we haven't heard anything from the drivers. So, Charles, closing thoughts before we leave for the very last time this season.
Well, as I said, amazing racing, clean racing. Congrats to Simon Bauer, even Cairns and Erasmus Abelstead on their pro overall, of course, championships, AM championships, and Pro-Am championships. So, unfortunately, we did not get to talk to them after the race, but it is all good because we know that they know that we know that they enjoyed this championship. So, yeah. Take it easy, everybody, and we will see you in the next season. Goodbye.
Yep. And just one final time, of course, got to do this. Obligations, all in all. Shoutouts to Simrigs sponsoring Season 12 of the Sprint Series. They've been incredible this season and last, and we hope to see them again in Season 13. This Melbourne sim racing supplier, all of Australia and New Zealand. They've got some of the best sim racing equipment money can buy. And of course, Charles and myself, we happen to live beyond those borders, so just send them an email. They'll be more than happy to do some business with you. And our Patreon members of Octane Online Racing, you guys get 5% off your in-store purchases, so make sure to use that. Sim racing equipment is not cheap. But, well, I think Charles really kind of said everything I wanted to say. We seem to think alike, and I'm perfectly okay with that. Ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it, not only for this broadcast, but for Season 12 of the Sprint Series. We're going to be back in a month's time. May 25th is when all of this is going to go down again for everybody involved, AP, EU, and NA. But until next time, as always, stay safe, stay beautiful. Congrats to all of our drivers, especially our class winners. And until next time, folks, keep it out of the wall.